You don't realize it yet, but this might be the day everything finally clicks for you. Not because you found a new indicator, not because someone gave you a perfect strategy, but because, for the first time, you're going to see the market differently. If you've been trading for a while, you already know the feeling. You enter, price goes the other way. You wait, nothing happens. You hesitate, and suddenly the move is gone. It feels random. It feels like the market is against you. But what if I told you it's not random at all? What if the market has been speaking to you this whole time, and you just didn't understand the language yet? In this video, I'm not going to overload you with complicated terms or confusing setups. Instead, I'm going to walk you through a journey, a shift from guessing to reading, from reacting to understanding. Because price action isn't about predicting the future. It's about learning how to observe behavior. Every candle you see is a decision. Every move is a reaction. Every breakout is a story. And once you understand that story, you stop chasing trades. You start recognizing them. By the end of this video, you won't just look at charts the same way. You'll start noticing things you've missed before. Why price pauses, why it reverses, why it explodes when you least expect it. This is the moment most traders never reach. But if you stay with me, this might be the day you finally understand price action. 1. The lie you've been trading. Let me tell you something most traders won't admit out loud. You were taught to look for signals, but not to understand why those signals even work. Think about it. You open your chart. You see a setup you recognize. Maybe a breakout, maybe support and resistance. And without even realizing it, your brain goes, okay, this is the pattern. This should go up. So you enter, but then price doesn't follow your expectation. And in that moment, confusion hits. Not because the market is confusing, but because you were never taught how to read it, only how to react to it. And that's the lie. The lie is that trading is about finding the right setup. But real price action? It's not about setups. It's about behavior. Look closer at your chart, not as a trader trying to make money, but as an observer trying to understand decisions. That candle that rejected a level? That wasn't magic. That was buyers stepping in and sellers failing to push lower. That breakout that failed? That wasn't bad luck. That was trapped traders forced to exit. The market isn't random. It's a constant battle between fear and conviction, between those who are early and those who are late. And every candle you see is evidence of that battle. Here's where everything starts to shift for you. Instead of, is this a good entry? Now, who is in control right now? Because once you can answer that, you stop guessing. You start reading. There's a famous quote from Livermore that says, price never lies. And most people hear that, but they don't actually understand it. Price doesn't lie, but traders do. They hesitate. They panic. They chase. They get trapped. And all of that shows up directly on the chart. So when you look at price action, you're not just looking at candles. You're looking at human behavior, translated into movement. This is why two traders can look at the same chart. And one sees confusion, while the other sees opportunity, because one is looking for patterns, and the other is reading the story. And in this part of the journey, I want you to stop trying to predict what happens next. Instead, start paying attention to what just happened. Where did price hesitate? Where did it accelerate? Where did traders get trapped? Because those moments, those small, almost invisible details, are where real understanding begins. And once you see that, you'll realize something powerful. The market was never unclear. You just weren't looking at it the right way until now. 2. Where most traders lose the plot. Now let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever been in a trade where everything looked right? The level was clean, the setup was there, the entry felt perfect. But somehow it still failed. And not just once. Over and over again. At some point you start thinking, maybe I'm just unlucky. Maybe this strategy doesn't work. But that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is this: you're looking at the market as if it's supposed to respect your idea. Instead of understanding that price only respects pressure, let me explain that in a way most people never break down. Every movement in the market comes from imbalance, not patterns, not indicators. Imbalance. When buyers are stronger, price moves up. When sellers take control, price drops. Simple. But here's where it gets deeper. Strength is not just about direction. It's about how price moves. Does it move fast? Does it hesitate? Does it keep getting rejected? Because those details tell you something most traders ignore. Whether the move is accepted or being challenged. For example, you see price breaking above a level. Most traders instantly think, breakout, buy. But if you slow down and actually watch the candles, you might notice something subtle. The breakout is weak. The candles are small. There's hesitation. That's not strength. That's doubt. And doubt in the market. That's where traps are born. This is the part where you stop trading what you think should happen and start reacting to what the market is actually showing you. Because price action is not about predicting the breakout. It's about recognizing whether the breakout is real. There's a powerful insight from Tudor Jones that fits perfectly here. The secret to trading is to have an indefatigable and an undying thirst for information and knowledge. And this is what he meant. Not more indicators, not more strategies, but a deeper understanding of what's actually happening behind every move. You start asking better questions. Not, is this a breakout? But, who is trapped here? Who is winning this move? Is this momentum or just noise? Because once you start seeing those layers, you'll notice something most traders completely miss. The market leaves clues before the big move happens. Small failures, weak pushes, sudden rejections. They're quiet, easy to ignore, but they're there. And when you learn to spot them, you stop being the trader who reacts late. You become the trader who understands early. That's the shift from surface-level trading to reading intent. And once you reach that point, you're not just following price anymore. You're starting to think like the people who move it. 3. The moment you stop chasing, at some point in your journey, something strange starts to happen. You're looking at the same charts, the same candles, the same markets, but your reaction is different. Before you felt urgency, now you feel patience. Before you saw a move and thought, I need to get in. Now you see the same move and think, let me see if this holds. That shift right there, that's where most traders either evolve or stay stuck forever. Because chasing is not just a bad habit, it's a symptom of not fully trusting what you see. Think about your past trades. How many times did you enter? Not because the market confirmed your idea, but because you were afraid of missing out. You saw momentum building, price moving fast, candles getting bigger. Instead of, is this sustainable? Now how do I get in before it's too late? And right after you enter, that's when the market pulls back. Not because it's targeting you, but because you entered at the point where everyone else felt the same fear. This is what most traders never fully understand. The market punishes emotion, not logic. When you chase, you're usually buying into strength that's already been exhausted. When you panic sell, you're usually exiting right when pressure is starting to shift. So the real question becomes, how do you stop chasing? You don't force discipline. You build clarity. Because when you truly understand what price is doing, you no longer feel the need to rush. You recognize that real opportunities don't appear in chaos. They appear in structure. Clean movements, controlled pullbacks, clear reactions. That's where decisions become easier. There's a quote from Stanley Druckenmiller that hits this perfectly. Earnings don't move the overall market. It's the Federal Reserve Board and focus on the central banks. Most people hear that and think it's about fundamentals. But the deeper meaning? Markets move because of forces behind the scenes, and price action is simply the reflection of those forces. So instead of reacting to every move, you start waiting for alignment. You wait for moments where price, behavior, and structure all tell the same story. And when that happens, you don't need to chase because the trade becomes obvious. Not easy, but clear, and clarity removes emotion. This is the part of the journey where trading starts to feel quieter, less stressful, more intentional. You're not glued to every candle anymore. You're observing, waiting, letting the market come to you. And here's the truth most people won't tell you. The less you feel the need to trade, the better your trades become. Because now you're no longer reacting to movement. You're responding to meaning. And once you reach that level, you'll notice something powerful. The opportunities were always there. You were just too busy chasing to see them clearly. 4. When you finally see what others don't. There's a moment in trading that's hard to explain. Because nothing changes on your screen, but everything changes in your mind. You're looking at price and suddenly, it's not just candles anymore. It's intention. You start noticing things you used to ignore. Not the obvious moves, but the subtle ones. Where price should have continued but didn't. Where it should have broken but failed. Where it looked strong but quietly lost momentum. And in those moments, you begin to realize something most traders never fully grasp. The real opportunities don't come from what price does. They come from what price fails to do. Let that sink in. Because this is where your perspective completely flips. Before you were impressed by strong moves. Now you're curious about weak ones. Before you chased breakouts. Now you watch how price behaves around the breakout. Does it hold? Does it pull back aggressively? Does it stall? Because those reactions, that hesitation, that friction, that's where the truth is. This is where you start spotting traps before they happen. You see buyers getting excited at resistance, but price isn't accelerating. You see sellers jumping in on a breakdown, but the follow-through is weak. And instead of joining them, you wait, because you understand something they don't. The market doesn't reward what's obvious. It rewards what's misunderstood. There's a quote from Richard Dennis that captures this perfectly. I always say that you could publish trading rules in the newspaper and no one would follow them. And that's the reality. It's not that the market is hiding anything from you. It's that most traders don't have the patience or the awareness to actually see it, because seeing requires slowing down. It requires you to stop reacting and start observing contradictions, moments where price and expectation don't match. That's where the edge is built. Not in predicting, but in recognizing when others are wrong. And once you start seeing that consistently, something changed. You stop needing confirmation from others. You stop relying on signals, alerts, or opinions, because the chart itself becomes enough. You trust what you see. Not because you're always right, but because you understand why something is happening. And that understanding gives you control. Not over the market, but over your decisions. This is the stage where trading becomes less about effort and more about awareness. You're no longer forcing trades. You're filtering them, letting most of them go, and focusing only on the ones that truly make sense. And here's the part that changes everything. When you finally see what others don't, you also stop doing what others do. No more chasing. No more guessing. No more hoping. Just clarity. And once you reach that point, you'll realize price action was never complicated. It was just waiting for you to understand it at a deeper level. 5. The day it all becomes simple. There's a point in your trading journey where everything you once thought was complicated suddenly becomes simple. Not easy, but clear. And it doesn't happen because you learn something new. It happens because you finally let go of everything that was unnecessary. Let me explain what I mean. In the beginning, you try to add more. More indicators, more confirmations, more strategies. You think complexity will give you certainty. But all it really does is drown out what actually matters. Price. Raw, unfiltered, honest price. And the moment you start trusting that, you begin to notice something different. You're not jumping between time frames anymore, looking for agreement. You're not stacking confirmations just to feel safe. You're simply asking, what is price doing right now? Is it moving with conviction? Is it struggling to continue? Is it reacting to a level or ignoring it? Because when you strip everything down, those questions become enough. This is where trading becomes less about effort and more about presence. You're not trying to force understanding. You're seeing it in real time. And here's the part most people don't expect. You start taking fewer trades, not because you're scared, but because you've become selective. You realize that not every movement deserves your attention. Not every setup deserves your capital. And that patience, that restraint, that's where consistency is built. There's a quote from Bruce Kovner that captures this perfectly. I know where I'm getting out before I get in. Simple, but powerful, because it tells you something deeper. Great traders don't rely on hope. They rely on clarity. They already understand the risk before they ever think about the reward. And when you combine that mindset with your ability to read price action, everything changes. You're no longer reacting emotionally. You're executing intentionally. You see a level, you see the behavior, you understand the context, and then you decide. No rush, no pressure, just a clear decision based on what's in front of you. This is the moment where trading stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a process, a calm one, a controlled one. And here's the truth. You won't win every trade. You'll still have losses, but they won't shake you the same way anymore, because now you understand the difference between a bad trade and a losing trade. And that difference, that's what protects your mindset. That's what keeps you consistent. That's what keeps you in the game long enough to actually grow. So if you've made it this far, realize what just happened. You didn't just learn price action. You learned how to think differently, how to slow down, how to observe, how to trust what you see without needing anything extra. And that's the day it all becomes simple. Not because the market changed, but because you did. 6. The trader. You become after understanding. Let me be real with you for a moment. After everything you've learned, after all the charts you've stared at, after all the wins and losses, you don't just become a better trader. You become a different person. And most people don't talk about this part, because it's not something you can measure with profit. It shows up in how you think, how you react, how you handle uncertainty. Before every trade felt heavy, you needed it to work. You wanted to be right. And when it didn't go your way, it affected you more than you'd like to admit. But now, there's a level of detachment, not careless, but controlled. You take a trade and you already understand this might not work, and that's okay, because you're no longer trading to prove something. You're trading to execute something, a process, a perspective, an understanding. And that shift right there is what separates traders who survive from traders who disappear, because the market doesn't reward emotion. It exposes it. Every hesitation, every impulse, every moment of doubt, it's all reflected back to you through price. And once you become aware of that, you start managing yourself more than the trade. You notice when you're forcing entries. You catch yourself when you're chasing. You step back when your emotions start getting involved. That awareness, that's real discipline. Not the kind you force, but the kind that comes naturally when you truly understand what you're doing. There's a quote from Mark Douglas that defines this stage perfectly. The market is a neutral environment. Simple words, but if you really understand that, it changes everything. The market isn't against you. It's not trying to trick you. It's just there, moving based on decisions, pressure, and behavior. And your job is not to control it. It's to understand it and respond accordingly. That's it. And once you fully accept that, fear starts to fade, not completely, but enough that it doesn't control your decisions anymore. You stop overreacting to losses. You stop getting overly excited about wins, because you see both for what they are, just outcomes, not identity, not validation, just part of the process. This is the version of you that most traders never reach. Calm, focused, detached but aware. You don't need constant action. You don't need to be in the market all the time. You're comfortable waiting, comfortable doing nothing, until something makes sense. And when it does, you act, without hesitation, without overthinking, just execution. That's the trader you become after understanding price action. Not perfect, not emotionless, but aligned with the market and with yourself. And once you reach that point, you realize something that changes everything moving forward. It was never just about learning how to trade. It was about learning how to think. And now you finally do. Part 7. Why most traders still don't make it. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Even after understanding everything we talked about, price action, behavior, patience, discipline, most traders still won't make it. Not because they can't, but because they won't stay consistent long enough. Let me explain this in a way that hits deeper. At this stage, you already know what to do. You know when price is weak. You know when it's strong. You know when something doesn't feel right. But knowing and doing are two completely different things. Because in real time, when money is on the line, your mind starts negotiating with you. You'll see a clean setup, but hesitate. You'll see a bad setup, but convince yourself it's valid. You'll plan your trade, and then abandon that plan the moment price starts moving. And it's subtle. That's what makes it dangerous. It doesn't feel like a mistake in the moment. It feels like a justified decision. Until you look back and realize you didn't follow what you already understood. This is where the real battle is. Not on the chart, but within you. Because consistency is not about doing something perfectly. It's about doing the right things even when you don't feel like it. Even when you're bored. Even when you're frustrated. Even when you just took a loss. That's the part no strategy can fix. That's the part no indicator can solve. There's a quote from Kovner that captures this perfectly. The trading rules I live by are cut losses, ride winners, and keep bets small. Simple. Almost too simple. But that's exactly why most people fail to follow it. Because the rules aren't complicated, they're uncomfortable. Cutting losses means admitting you're wrong. Riding winners means sitting through uncertainty. Keeping bets small means letting go of the urge to make money fast. And most traders struggle with all three. So even if they understand price action, their behavior pulls them back. This is the final layer of the journey, where knowledge is no longer the problem. Execution is. And here's what separates the ones who make it from the ones who don't. The ones who make it, they respect their process more than their emotions. They don't need to feel confident to execute. They don't need to feel certain to take a trade. They just follow what they've already proven to themselves, over and over again. No shortcuts, no sudden breakthroughs, just repetition. And at first it feels boring, like nothing is happening. But that boredom, that's actually a sign you're doing it right. Because you're no longer chasing excitement. You're building consistency. And consistency is what turns understanding into results. And that's why most traders still don't make it. But you can. So if you've made it all the way to this point, I want you to take a second and really think about it. Not just what you've learned, but how your perspective has changed. Because this wasn't just about price action. This was about how you see the market, how you react to it, and ultimately how you understand it. And if something in this video clicked for you, even just one small shift, that's where everything starts. Not overnight success, not instant profits, but awareness. And awareness is what turns into consistency over time. So now I want to hear from you. What was the moment in this video that made you stop and think? Was it realizing the market isn't random? Was it understanding behavior over setups? Or was it that shift from chasing to waiting? Drop it in the comments. I read them. And more importantly, other traders read them too. Because sometimes the insight you share might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if this video gave you value, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit the like button so more traders can actually see this. Share it with someone who's struggling right now. Someone who's still stuck chasing, guessing, and overthinking. You might help them see things differently. And if you want more content like this, not just surface-level tips, but real understanding, make sure you subscribe. Because this channel isn't about shortcuts. It's about building a mindset that actually lasts. One video at a time, one shift at a time. And remember, the market isn't something you conquer. It's something you learn to understand. So take what you've learned here, go back to your charts and don't rush. Observe, pay attention, let things make sense. Because the more you understand, the less you'll feel the need to force anything. And that's where everything starts to change. I'll see you in the next one.